Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our celebration of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday. The program today, we will start with chanting by the Vedic chanting by the Sarada Nuns. Then we will be having a talk by Brett Mulholland, then a performance by our dear friend, Professor Kim Cunio, and followed by a talk by Pravrajika Gayatriprana. And then you're all invited to stay back for lunch. And have a bit more to say about the speaker and performer a little bit later. So I'll now invite the Sarada Nuns to come and do the Vedic chanting.
We are chanting Purushottam from the Rig Veda. Om Tacham Yoravrini Mahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivi Swastirastunaha Swastirmanushebhyaha Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Sham no astu dvipade, sham chatushpade, om shanti shanti shanti. We pray and worship the Supreme for the welfare of all. May all miseries and shortcomings leave us forever, so that we may always sing in the sacrifices and for the Lord of the sacrifices. May the medicinal herbs grow in potency so that diseases may be cured effectively. May the gods rain peace on us. May the human beings be happy. May all other beings also be happy. May peace, physical, mental, and spiritual, be on us forever. Om Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishwato Vritva Atyatishthadashangulam. The Supreme Person exists, enveloping the whole manifest universe, cognizing through every mind, seeing through every eye, and working through every limb. Nay, he exists, transcending the universe. Purusha evedagum sarvam yadbhutam yaccha bhavyam utamritatvasheshanaha yadannena tirohati. Essentially, the whole universe is he himself. Whatever was, whatever is, and whatever will be, all are his manifestation. It is he who confers on all immortality, by which alone they live. Yetavanasya mahima ato jaya gumshcha purushaha padosya vishwa bhutani tripadasya amritam divi. The whole manifest universe is his splendor. He, the Supreme Person, transcends it very much. By a part, literally 1/4 of his splendor, he supports the universe eternally during the past, present, and future, whereas the major part of his splendor, embodying immortality, is beyond the range of the manifest universe. Tripadurtha udait purushaha Padosyeha bhavat punaha tato vishwam vyakramata sashananashane abhi. This Supreme Person is outside the range of samsara, of birth and death. Only a part of his has become the whole universe. From this manifest part, the sentient kingdom has sprung, consisting of both the living and non-living beings. Tasmad virada jayata virajo adhipurushaha sajato atyarichyata paschad bhumi madho puraha. From him has emerged the cosmos, and out of this cosmos, which is technically called Virat, it's all-pervading, making it the basis as it were, the cosmic person, the first creator, came into being. The firstborn being gradually grew. He created first this earth, and then the various bodies, both divine and demoniac. Yat purushena havisha deva yajnamatanyata vasando asya sidajyam grishma idma sharadhavihi. Then the devas performed a sacrifice. Since there existed nothing save that person, he himself was the sacrificial offering. The spring season became the ghee, the summer became the faggots, and the autumn became the rice offering. Saptasyasan paridhayaha trisaptas samidha kritaha devayad yajñam tanvanaha abadhnan purusham pashum. In this sacrifice, the 7 Vedic meters represented the 7 boundaries, the 21 ingredients, 12 months, 5 seasons, 3 worlds, and the sun, form the sacrificial faggots, and the sacrificers consider the Supreme Person as the animal to be tied to the post. Tam yajñam barhishi prakshan purusham jatamagratah tena deva ayajanda sadhyarishayaschaye. This Supreme Person, the firstborn being, who became the sacrificial offering, was purified by the sprinkling of water and uttering of mantras. Thus was performed the first sacrifice by the Devas and the Rishis. Tasmad yajñat sarvahutaha samhritam prishadajyam Pashugumstagumschakre vayavyan aranyan gramyamschaye. For this sacrifice, in which was invoked the all-inclusive Supreme Person, ghee mixed with curds was procured, as also many animals, both wild and domestic, having the wind god as the presiding deity. Tasmad yajñat sarvahutaha richasamani jajnire chandagumsi jajnire tasmat ejustasmadajayata. And as an offshoot of this sacrifice, in which was invoked the all-inclusive Supreme Person, came out the Rik mantras, the Yajur mantras, the Sama mantras, and the various Vedic meters like the Gayatri. Tasmadasya ajayanda ekecho bhayadataha gavo hajajnire tasmat tasmajjata ajavayaha. From this sacrifice again have sprung the horses having 1 row of teeth and other animals having 2 rows of teeth, different varieties of cows, goats, and ewes. Yat purusham vyadadhuhu katidha vyakalpayan mukham kimasya kau bahu kavuryopada uchyete. And one cannot imagine how much thought went before the projection of human beings. Which of the limbs of the Supreme Person would represent which section of man? Which would be his head, the two hands, the two thighs, and the two feet? Brahmanosya mukhamasit bahurajanyakritah uro tadasya yadvaishyah padbhyagum shudro ajayata. At last, after long meditation, it was concluded that the Brahmana would represent the head or the power of thought and discrimination of the Supreme Person. The Kshatriya would represent the arms or the power of protection and preservation of the Supreme Person. The Vaishya would represent the thighs or the power of acquisition and distribution of the Supreme Person. And the Shudra would represent the feet or the power of support and movement of the Supreme Person. Chandrama manaso jataha chaksho suryo ajayata mukhadindraschagnischa pranadvayurajayata. Then from the Supreme Person was born the various luminous beings and bodies and the different worlds, the moon from his mind, the sun from his eyes, the fire and Indra from his mouth, and the wind god from his breath. Nabhya asidandariksham Shishnodhyau samavartata padbhyam bhumirdisha shrotrat tatha lokagum akalpayan. The space emerged from his navel, the worlds of gods or heaven from his head, the earth from his feet, and the different quarters from his ears. This was the way in which world projection was effected. Vedahametam purusham mahantam adityavarnam tamasastu pare sarvani rupani vichitya dhiraha namani krutva bhivadanyadaste. I have known the Supreme and Magnanimous Person who sacrificed himself for the welfare of this universe, of the sun's hue, and beyond all ignorance. He, the Wise One, molded out of himself by his Maya the various forms and called them by different names. Dhata purastadyamuda jahara Shakra pravidwan pratishaschatasraha tamevam vidwan amrita iha bhavati nanya pantha ayanaya vidyate. The first creator, Brahma, knew the Supreme Person. He in turn made him known to Shakra, that's Indra, the king of gods, for the benefit of all beings. Hence, even today, he who knows him and the creation thus, as presented above, as pervaded and permeated and possessed by the Supreme Person, verily attains immortality. There is no other way for spiritual perfection. Yajnena yajnamaya janda devaha tani dharmani pradhamanyasan te hanakam mahimanas sachande yatra purve sadhya santi devaha. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sad. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. The Devas mentally performed the first sacrifice by consecrating the cosmic body of God itself. This sacrifice, or renunciation of selfishness and all one's possessions, has become the basis of all religions. He who bases his life on sacrifices or renunciation verily reaches the highest abode of God, where all the perfected aspirants repair. Om, peace, peace, peace.
We're now going to hear a talk by Brett Mulholland, Brett's a long-time member of our society, a dear friend. Interestingly, Brett and a group of friends growing up in the Sutherland Shire found out about Sri Ramakrishna way back in the 1970s. One of Brett's friends, Ian Harris, had found a book about Sri Ramakrishna in the local library, possibly the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And I'm quite impressed as a little group of Aussie surfer mates that they could be interested in Sri Ramakrishna. It struck a chord with them and it stuck with them. So now we're really honored to hear a talk by Brett.
Good morning, brothers and sisters of Australia. Friends, with that introduction, I have made reference to two great men who have been instrumental in the spreading of India's eternal religion, Sanatana Dharma, and its philosophy of Vedanta and Yoga, the path of knowledge leading to enlightenment, liberation or self-realization, God realization, across the world. The first reference was a variation on the introduction of the inaugural speech delivered by Swami Vivekananda, Ramakrishna's foremost disciple, at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago in 1893. The second reference, friends, was the usual way Swami Ranganathananda used to introduce his speech. He was the 13th president of the Ramakrishna order, and his guru was Swami Shivananda, the second president of the Ramakrishna order and direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. The philosophy of Vedanta suggests that behind the universe and man is a unified spiritual energy field of the nature of pure consciousness, pure existence, pure joy. And the goal of life is to uncover that and manifest it. This philosophy is not unlike quantum physics, which is the study of matter and energy at the most fundamental level. Both seek the truth behind existence and life. The jnanis or philosophers call it Brahman or the Absolute. The yogis or mystics call it Paramatman or the Supreme Self of all. And the bhaktas or devotees call it Bhagwan or the all-loving God. This reality, having two dimensions according to Vedanta philosophy, is called Brahman and Maya, and in the Samkhya philosophy, Purusha and Prakriti, and in the Tantric philosophy, it is called Shiva and Shakti. The two dimensions are the absolute and the relative aspects of the underlying reality. Beyond space, it is infinite. Beyond time, it is eternal. And beyond causation, it is changeless. Brahman, in its absolute aspect, is changeless and imperishable, and with its power, it is a relative aspect manifest as a universe and all that is in it. At the cosmic level, as a macrocosm, it is called Brahman. At the individual or microcosmic level, it is called the Atman, or for want of a better translation, the soul. Both are the same essence. We are part of nature. We are not removed from it. It is sometimes referred to as divine. As Swami Ranganathananda used to say, spirituality is not superstition or supernatural, but supersensual. That is beyond the senses or the scientific instruments of the senses. Swami Turiyananda, one of Ramakrishna's direct disciples, paid much attention at one time to the study of Vedanta. When the master, another name for Sri Ramakrishna, saw him, he said, "Does it teach any more than this? Brahman is real, the world is unreal." Or in other words, Brahman is permanent and all else is impermanent. It has been said that when man's needs are met and his problems are solved, he often becomes a problem. These coverings being a time not so long ago that this knowledge was not available to many people at all. And yet here in Sydney, we have access to the monks and nuns of the Ramakrishna order and the Sarada Mutt, and can become familiar with the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, the Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda. Man is the greatest manifestation of that universal essence on this planet. His consciousness or awareness is highly developed and, unlike any other being on the planet, has the capacity of self-reflection and analysis and can observe himself in the act of observation. Even amongst human beings, there are greater and lesser manifestations of that underlying power. Think of any world leaders, world champions in any field of endeavor, great people that influence many other people. The greatest manifestation of the divine in man are those who are often termed God-men or incarnations of God, like Jesus, Buddha, Chaitanya, Rama, Krishna, and in the modern age, Sri Ramakrishna, often referred to as the master because he had mastered all spiritual disciplines and transcended the mind, senses, and the body. Girish Chandra Ghosh, an eminent actor and playwright and a householder devotee of the Master, looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as God himself, born out of love and compassion for mankind to liberate souls from the bondage of the world. When Ramakrishna asked Girish what he thought of him, that he broadcast that view to one and all, and what he had seen in him, which made him say so many things publicly in glorification of the Master, Girish replied, "What more can I say about him, even a fraction of whose glory great sages like Vyasa and Valmiki miserably failed to express in their immortal epics and Puranas? So what can I possibly say?" The life of the Master and his spiritual practices are unique in that there has never before been such a detailed and exhaustive study of the life of a God-man. We even have photographs of the Master, the Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda, his other devotees, and many places associated with their lives. The Great Master, the book by Swami Saradananda, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, is a meticulously researched and exhaustive study of the life of the master. All events were thoroughly checked against information gathered from multiple eyewitness accounts and interpreted in the light of the scriptures. The Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna by the householder devotee Mahendranath Gupta records the many conversations heard while visiting the master. Ramakrishna was born into a devout Vaishnava family in a small village outside of Calcutta. The master was a Brahmana by birth and had no doubt been initiated in the mantra of Rama in order to perform properly the worship and service of the family deity Raghuvir. The master had little interest in formal education. However, he had a tremendous memory and learnt by heart the songs, yatras, and stories of the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other texts, having listened to them but once. Ramakrishna used to rehearse plays with his friends. During his early life, he had a number of spiritual experiences as a child. Once, while observing a flock of white birds flying across a sky blackened by rain clouds, and once when asked to play the part of the Lord Shiva in a local theatre production. He fell unconscious or in a semi-conscious state of ecstasy during these times, and they were not the only times. The master's formal period of sadhana or spiritual practice lasted for 12 years and is usually divided into 3 divisions of 4 years. Ramakrishna lived at the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar, a suburb of Calcutta on the Ganges River, for this entire period. There is a clear difference in the nature of sadhana of the first division from those of the other 2. From 1856 to 1859, the master received very little external help in his spiritual practice. Ramakrishna was helped by his elder brother, Ram Kumar, who he assisted in the duties of dressing the images in the Radha Govinda temple and the Kali temple, and Ramakrishna later accepted the office of priest in the Kali temple. His elder brother, Ram Kumar, then started teaching him the complete reading of the Chanting, a beloved Hindu scripture, and instructed him in the correct mode of worship of the Divine Mother. The master received initiation in the Shakti mantra from Kedaram Bhattacharya, knowing that it is not proper to worship the Divine Mother Kali without being initiated with her mantra. Ramakrishna proceeded to practice that discipline. The extreme eagerness of his heart for the realization of God was his main support during this period. His desire became so strong, he progressed from the formal rules and regulations of ritualistic devotions to the spontaneity and freedom of the ragatmika form of divine love. The master during this period paid no attention to the preservation of his life, let alone physical health, like cleaning of the body, eating or sleeping. The master was unconscious of how whole days slipped away in worship, devotional exercises, singing, prayer and meditation, collecting flowers for the worship of the Divine Mother. After the master's first vision of the Divine Mother, consisting of pure consciousness, Ramakrishna continued practices, eager to have a continual vision of her. From 1860 to 1863, the master was under the instruction of the Bhairavi Brahmani in the practice of all the disciplines of the 64 main tantras, observing all the scriptural injunctions after being initiated by her. Ramakrishna said he did not take more than 3 days to succeed in any of the tantric disciplines of the heroic mode. When a beautiful young woman was brought to sit on the master's lap as part of the final disciplines, the master exclaimed to the Divine Mother Kali, "What is this command thou hast given me? Has thy weak child the power to be so impudently daring?" Previously, the Rani, the temple owner, and Mathur, who managed the temple grounds, had tempted the master with beautiful prostitutes, mistaking his spiritual condition as a derangement of the mind due to unbroken continence. The master saw in these women the special manifestation of the divine Mother Kali and went into samadhi. Previously, we don't have record of any of the God-men or incarnations being tested in this way. During this period, the master developed the 8 miraculous or psychic powers. 1864 to 1867 was spent in the practice of the following sadhanas or spiritual disciplines. The master became interested in the disciplines of the Vaishnava scriptures. The Brahmani was an expert in the disciplines of the Panchabhavas, the 5 main spiritual moods spoken of in the Vaishnava scriptures. Santabhava, the placid mood. Dasyabhava, the attitude of servant to master, which is often difficult for us to understand in this society and probably is best related in terms of student to teacher. Sakyabhava, the attitude of companionship. Vatsalyabhava, the parental attitude, and Madhurabhava, the conjugal attitude. The object attainable through each of these is Brahman with attributes as a personal God, Ishvara, all-loving, the inner controller of all beings, all-powerful, eternally pure and free. The master practiced the disciplines of each of these 5 moods. He passed some time in the mood of Mahavir, to whom Rama was as dear to life, culminating in the vision of Sita, Rama's consort. The master was then initiated in the mantra of Rama by a monk of the Ramawat denomination called Jatadhari and got the image of Ramalala, the baby Rama, from him. For a period of 6 months, the master looked upon himself as a woman and engaged in sadhana in women's apparel in order to realize the spiritual attitude of a female friend of the Divine Mother and the conjugal attitude towards Krishna, practicing in the mood of Krishna's lovelorn women, seeking Radha's grace and culminating in the vision of Krishna. The master then received the Vedic Mahavakya and Sannyas from Totapuri and followed the disciplines of Advaita Vedanta, non-dualism, and attained to the Nirvikalpa plane of consciousness. He then spent 6 months continually in this state. This has never been recorded previously and is unique to the master's experience as far as we know. He then followed this by 6 months, unfortunately, of dysentery, so that the mind would remain on the threshold of the absolute and relative planes of existence. The master then studied and practiced the disciplines of Islam after receiving initiation from Govinda Ray. Sambhucharan Malik used to read the Bible to the master when he expressed an interest in Christianity, and hardly any need for practicing the sadhanas when he had the vision of Jesus entering his own body. The master always offered his loving worship to Lord Buddha and a great reverence for the Jains and Sikhs. The master had come to the end of his spiritual practice, confirming that his own spiritual experiences and visions were real by many spiritual teachers and the various scriptures. The master had practiced all the main religions of Hinduism, including the main tantric sadhanas, all the spiritual moods of the Vaishnava scriptures, and had practiced and experienced dualism, qualified non-dualism, and non-dualism. The master also practiced Islam and Christianity and declared through direct experience that all the religions were valid pathways to the same ultimate goal. Another unique aspect of the master's sadhana is the confirmation by the scriptures of his spiritual states of mind and experience by eminent pundits. Pandit Padmalochan saw the master following his completion of the tantric practices and declared, "I see in you the divine power and manifestation." Pandit Vaishnavacharya saw the master following his completion of the Vaishnava disciplines and composed a hymn to the master describing him as an incarnation of God. Pandit Gauri saw the master following the completion of all his spiritual practices and said, I see tangibly realized in you all the high spiritual states recorded in the scriptures read by me. Besides, I see in you the manifestation of such exalted states as are not recorded in them. Your state has far transcended these mentioned in the Vedas, the Vedanta, and other sastras. May we all be blessed with the awakening of our spiritual consciousness. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Brett. Now, we've got a performance by a very dear friend of ours. I think we're eternally grateful, Kim, for lifting our play that we staged at the Sydney Opera House in 2013, Oneness. Other key persons here, Madhu Sen, who got all of that program underway. But Kim was brought into the whole production team, and he lifted that play up to another level with his music, accompanied by Hedda and Babu, of course. So we have very fond memories of that whole time. Kim's currently, he's head of the School of Music at the Australian National University. He's a composer, performer, researcher, interested in old and new musics, and the role of music in making sense. His compositions have been played at the White House, United Nations, and in many countries. He is commissioned by the Sydney 2000 Olympics, the Art Gallery of New South Wales, the National Gallery of Victoria, the Melbourne International Arts Festival, and so on and on. And I'm intrigued to read, Kim, that I don't know whether you're still doing this, but you at some stage you had a daily half-hour TV show on Indian television with an estimated audience of 100 million. Is that so? Is that still happening?
It's in repeats now.
On repeats, okay. That's extraordinary. Now, apart from all these achievements and accolades, I'm quite interested to read about Kim's background and particularly the history of his parents. Kim's mixed race, Iraqi and Indian Jew, born in Australia. His mother was a refugee from Burma to India, who then migrated to Australia via the UK. His father grew up in Shanghai. He was in prison during the war. He was forced to leave China when Mao came into power. So that's quite a background for your parents, Kim. They, as immigrants to Australia, like many immigrants, they struggled to get established here. There wasn't much money in the family. Kim had a job cleaning out the horse stables at the Sydney Showground to help out with the family finances. So he's been there and done that. He comes from at least a humble background financially, but a very exalted background when it comes to music. Both his parents are very talented regarding music. So now, having said all that, let's now listen to Kim's beautiful music and his beautiful voice. We'll just get set up. Give us a moment.
Good morning, dear friends. I hope you can hear me okay. And so I wanted to firstly start by saying thank you to the Pravrajika for such a beautiful chant, and also this story that is exalted, isn't it? That maybe all of us have to make this sacrifice on some level to really find God realization. And I think this is such a beautiful story. And in a second, I'm going to respond by doing some chant that's derived from a similar story from Judaism, which I think might be interesting to us. But I wanted to also thank Robert for being such a source of constancy in all our lives in this beautiful center. And to come, I haven't been since the lockdown, and to see this beautiful refurbishment, so lovingly done for all of us. It's just a wonderful thing. And Brett, for your talk, which was really inspiring, to have the sense that this living history is our history, isn't it? And so that's, I guess, what I'd like to say to start with. And because I'm alone today, I have apologies from Heather, who some of you will have heard sing before. She's actually in the middle of a tour in India. She's had 4 or 5 concerts in Delhi, which has gone very well, sponsored by the Indian government, which is nice. And also my young son, Babu, who is working today, who would come and play tabla for you all. So you have only 1/3 of the family today, and I apologize for that. And because of that, I think you're going to have to help me at least part of the time, because I think it's much nicer if we all do some chanting together. So maybe less of a performance and more of a kirtan for parts of today. Robert, I'm just wondering, is it possible to turn the one, to have it going in but not coming out of the speaker, that microphone, so it still goes into the stream? I think that would be, yeah, thanks. Join me in some Oms to start with, so all together. I'm going to start a quick Shiva chant, and please, when you feel comfortable, join me. So very simple. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah a little higher now.
Now we have to all make the tower. So and again. Namaskar. Keep it up.
Three on this together. Thanks, friends. Isn't it lovely that we can use that term, friends, and also sisters and brothers of the inner West and the whole of Sydney and the whole of the world. So I must say, when I first met everyone from Ramakrishna order and Vedanta and started really thinking, what does Advaita Vedanta mean to us in Australia? I realized that if there is enlightenment, it's not only just that we can be happy in our homes and have incredible monks and nuns holding a vibration for us, but it's actually that we can be the ones who bring about the change to make this world a better place, isn't it? That we can all be inspired as we get more God realized to heal ourselves and heal others at all times. And I think this is the great inspiration I had when I met everyone from this, and thinking about Sri Ramakrishna, someone who did musically only what Mozart could do. You know, there's this famous story of Mozart hearing a piece of music called so spiritually powerful, the Legaries Miserere Me, that it was only played once a year in the Vatican. And a 14-year-old Mozart heard this 15-minute piece of music once and wrote it down because he was so spiritually moved by it. And this is Sri Ramakrishna in music as well, isn't it? So I think we have this feeling of there's something beyond the senses of greatness, spiritual greatness. And I thought, seeing he was so inclusive, I'd do something that I don't think I've ever done with Heather here. I wanted to just tell you a very quick story and then sing you Psalm 23 in a few different languages, because I think this is such a part of what Vedanta brings, is this idea that at the heart of it, of course, as Gandhiji said, God has no religion. We all come to this realization. But there's a story in the Old Testament about Avraham, and it's his first great spiritual test, and we just heard about these tests from Brett. So Avraham is told by God directly, you have to actually perform a sacrifice for the whole of humankind. But unfortunately, the only way humankind will be preserved is that you sacrifice your son, Yitzhak. And it breaks his heart, but he says, God has told me to do this, I must. So he walks up with his son Yitzhak up to the top of the mountain, and Yitzhak constantly says, Father, what are we sacrificing? It seems like you haven't prepared properly. He says, don't worry, all will be revealed. And it goes on and on and on, and then slowly Yitzhak, as they get to the top of the mountain, starts to have an inkling that he is the sacrifice. And he looks at his father and basically says, if that is God's will, that is God's will. And then Abraham says, if that is God's will, that is God's will. But then he says, but at the same time, I can plead to you, O Lord, that something can be changed. And then the angel of death and the angel of mercy appear and actually absolve the sacrifice and say, that's the test, and you have passed, which is to give up all you are in order to really find us. So I think this is such a beautiful story, and it's often said in Judaism just before Psalm 23 is sung. So I'd like to chant you Psalm 23 in Latin and in Hebrew, and I might read the English translation because it's so beautiful. First of all, maybe the English. I think we all know it. It's such a beautiful series of words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me to the still waters. The Lord restores my soul and leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, you comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of those who know you have. You anoint my head with oil and my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of you, the Father, forever. So the original language. Adonai Eloi lo echsa, Nifolot de shilviti, al me menuchotot in chaluni, na veshi yeshovel
ונתתי במשלו זה למען שמו גם כל אלה בנים אצלמה ולהולדתם רע כי אתה עבדי שבקנייה אשמות בתך ונחמוני תרביץ לבני שלכל נגד צודקי תשתה בשמי ראשי כבודך נהיה אין הכל בחסד ירפני ולמני חיה השבתי וניטוב אדוני עודדי את ימי אם עשבתי סמוסתתי Domine estera et penetero eis, orbis terrale metinum vasi qui habitant in eis, qui ipser supi Maria fundabit eum, et super frumina praperavit eum, qui ascendit in montem Domini, aut qui stabit in locus sancto eis, Innocens manibus et mundot colpe, qui non accebit in vano animam suum, nec curabit in dolo proximo suum. Hic accebiet benedictionem ad Domino, et misericordiam et Deus salutaris suum. Ec est generatio quarentium meum, Quadentium faciem Deiatum, ad literi portes principis vestras, et elevamini pote eternales, et introibit rex gloriae, quis esister rex gloriae, Dominus fortis et portes, Dominis potens imprelio, Atolite portes principas vestras, et elevamini pote eternales, et introibet rex gloriae. Quis estis te rex gloriae, Domines veturum et sedes gloriae. Amen.
Hopefully some feeling of our shared vibration there. So, dear friends, I think now I'd like to do a bhajan. I said to Heather that I was coming this morning. I rang her last night and she said, please do my favorite bhajan, Raghupati, but of course, favorite bhajan of so many people. And partly because if we think that this is the great gift of India and maybe also the great gift of Hinduism is to incorporate everyone else into Raghupati. So we have the original words, which are all purely Hindu, and then
this reform movement to say, let's bring in other religions, particularly Islam, to heal this great divide. And I find this so inspiring. If you want to sing along, please do.
Rakumpatira Gavaraja Patita Pavasita Raghupatira Gavaraja Atita Pavanasita Sitara Sitara Madhyabaratu Sita Sita Sitara Madhyabaratu Sita Ishkwala Allah Kaderma Sabako Sandate De Bhagavan Ishkwala Allah Sabako Sandate De Bhagavan
I think we should all sing. I think we all know various versions of this. Raghupatira Gavaraja Patita Pavanasita Raghupatira Gavaraja Patita Pavanasita Sitaram Sitaram Vajyaparatu Sitaram 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 Vajyaparatu Sitaram Ishwanap Allah de Rama Sapako Sanate de Bhagavan Ishwanap Allah de Rama Sapako Sanate de Bhagavan Raghupati Raghavaraja Patita Pavana Sitaram Raghupati Raghavaraja Patita Pavana Sitaram 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 Vyajapyamyachu Sitaram 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 Vyajapyamyachu Sitaram Ishwanap Allah Sabako Bhavate Bhagavan. So friends, I have one more piece, and it's another chant. It's actually a chant I composed really when I was a young man, first really trying to get into my spiritual life. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could have a little chant for my own practice that enabled me to look at different names of the deities or the masters, and I could just cycle through them for my own practice. So I thought I'd teach you this little one that I did a number of years ago. I'll just bring it up on my computer, won't be a second. I'll just teach you the tune. It's really simple. It goes like this, and it has a lot of Om in it. Start with Narayana. Nara. Just hear that again. And the next part is. That again. And the last part is. You can just hum along or do nothing, but we'll start with Narayan and then Lakshmi, and then maybe we might do the master and then cycle through some other inspiring figures. Now Lakshmi. Shri. Om Ramakrishna. Om Ramakrishna. Om Ramakrishna. Vivekananda. Om Vivekananda. Vivekananda. Om Vivekananda.
Om Kana Om Jiva
Om Krishna.
Om Krishna Om Krishna
We have to do Radha. Rama. Finish with Sita.
Sita
And three beautiful longs to finish our little time together. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kim. We could sit and listen to your music all day, and it's not passive music. I love the way you get us all involved as well. Now we'll have a talk by Pravrajika Gayatriprana.
Thank you, Kim. It was wonderful. It's always a pleasure to hear your music. Only a few weeks ago, I heard it was wonderful. Thank you to have you here again. And thank you, Brett, for the wonderful talk. It was very good. Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharma swarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. I had taken the topic for my talk, Sri Ramakrishna's dictum for the present age. Jiva is Shiva. We all know the ancient Vedic dictum, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. Truth is one, sages call it by various names. That's a dictum we all know. It means the ultimate reality, the truth, is the same, but it is called or described by various sages and seers in different parts by different names. This is the core principle on which forms the basis of the religious harmony of Vedanta. But this idea remained in the Vedas only and came to be well known only after Swami Vivekananda made it popular as the authority for the principle of religious harmony. And Swami Vivekananda saw it exemplified in the life of his guru, Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna did not take any religious ideas on trust. He wanted to experiment with them, whatever he was told. He wanted to experiment with, he experimented, tested, and proved to himself the reality or truth of that particular ideas. For example, when he was worshipping Divine Mother Kali as the priest, you're worshipping Kali, the living image, but it's an idol. So he wanted to find out whether it is just an idol or a living presence. So after his spiritual practices for some time, one day he wanted to see whether am I worshipping just a marble idol or a living mother? How do you find out whether the person is living or not? You find that whether the person is breathing. So Sri Ramakrishna held a piece of cotton wool near mother's nose to find out whether it will move. If the person is breathing, then the cotton will move, wall will move. And he found that actually it is moving. So he wanted to test and verify for himself whether it's a living presence. So in the same way, he tested the claims of all the different traditions, faith traditions, the Tantric traditions, the Vaishnava tradition, the Vedantic, Islamic, Christian, all. By practicing their disciplines, the disciplines they have asked to practice in the prescribed way. And he found that they all lead to the same goal. They all lead to God, or whatever name you use well. So he came to find that, to the conclusion that these are all different paths leading to the same goal. And from his religious experiments, this Rishi of modern time, he gave us the conclusion, as many faith, so many paths. The same dictum that Ekam Sat Vipra Bahudha Vadanti, he gave in a modern language, as many faith, so many paths. And not just that he realized, but he practiced in his life. When you read his life or the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, his teachings, you can find people of different faith coming to him. Followers of the Brahma Samaj, whom he used to refer to as the modern Brahmajnanis. That's how he knows the modern knowers of Brahman, he used to refer to them. Then the Vaishnavas, the Shaktas, Muslims, Christians, Sikh, Jain, all. His room was always full of these people. And each felt that he belongs to them. For example, there's one Christian came and then he was telling the devotee seated there, now he appears to you like Ramakrishna, but actually he's Jesus Christ. I have seen him as Jesus Christ. So each person felt that Sri Ramakrishna belonged to his particular denomination or follower. But because he was all-encompassing. And one of the uniqueness of Sri Ramakrishna's message is that it is deeply rooted in the traditional past. Yet his arguments and examples and parables are easily accessible, easily understood, and resonate with the modern mind. He made the abstruse philosophical ideas easy of access to ordinary people and demonstrated how they can be practiced in daily life. We see that the Upanishads speak about the unity of existence. For example, there is the famous Mahavakya, the great utterance from the Upanishad, Tattvamasi, thou art that. It points that the divinity or the supreme reality is present in you. You means anyone, but present in all. Again, we see the Isha Upanishad, the opening mantra of the Isha Upanishad, Isha Vasam Idam Sarvam. The entire universe of moving and unmoving are pervaded by that supreme reality. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, all this is verily Brahman. So all these point out that everything is essentially divine. So the Upanishad is saying God is immanent. But what it is, scholars tell us. They concentrated or they highlighted the transcendental aspect. The result was that spiritual seekers turned away from the world. And the idea came that if you are a spiritual seeker, you have to turn away away from the world, avoid interaction with people, go to some remote mountain or forest cave and stay by yourself. Because people are causing bondage. It's an obstruction. That was the idea. What a difference between what the Upanishads actually meant and what the scholars and the Pandits teach us. Sri Ramakrishna removed this barrier between, and they looked upon human beings as an obstruction to their devotion to God, love of God. Sri Ramakrishna removed this barrier between love of human beings and love of God by living these ideals in his life and teaching it to the modern people. Love finds expression in service. If you love somebody, you love to serve the person. You like to serve the person. You show the affection, you show the love through service. But it's a common notion among the so-called religious people. I'll say so-called religious people, that their love of God diminishes if they love human beings. If you associate with people, if you interact with people, then your love of God will be diminishing. So we see that traditionally, as I said earlier, the traditional religious seekers, they turn away from society, they shun society. Sri Ramakrishna's idea was, if you love God, you should love human beings and serve human beings. How do you serve God? You cannot, you can offer flowers and all the other offerings, but the next door, there may be people starving. Is that love of God? You are seeing only God in that particular idol. Sri Ramakrishna said, no, God is present. The Upanishad says God is everywhere. Then why don't you serve God in the present in that human beings who are suffering? So he he removed the barrier between service of man and service of God. Actually, he joined these two together. Service to man is service to God. God in man. Thus, Sri Ramakrishna gave us a new dictum in the modern age. Jiva is Shiva. Jiva, individual soul, is Shiva, so God himself. How it came to happen is an interesting story. One day, Sri Ramakrishna was talking with his group of devotees sitting in the Dakshineswar Kali temple in his room. There was a lot of people were there. They were discussing the spiritual practice, doctrines of the Vaishnava tradition. And Sri Ramakrishna told them that according to the Vaishnava tradition, one has to be careful to observe three things. You should have taste for God's name. That means you should be happy. You should love to repeat the name of God, chant and sing and glories. Then kindness to living beings and service to Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas means devotees of God. So these are the three things, according to the Vaishnava doctrine, these are three things that we had to a Vaishnava devotee has to observe. One has to have the conviction that the whole world belongs to God, and so should have compassion for all beings. Now, uttering the word compassion 2-3 times, he went into an ecstatic mode. And then after a short few minutes, he regained partial consciousness and he started saying, talk of compassion for beings? Insignificant creatures that you are, how can you show compassion to beings? Who are you to show compassion? No, it's not compassion to jivas, but service to them as Shiva. His idea is, who are you to show compassion? The idea of compassion is, you are standing on a higher pedestal and you are showing a compassion, you are showing pity to somebody who is suffering. No, it's God is there. God has come in front of you. So it is serving God. It's not showing compassion. It's serving God. Service to Jiva as, serve them as Shiva. Now, a lot of people were there in the room. The room was full. They all heard it. But only one person understood the real import of these words. That was Narendra. Narendra was the only one who understood the real import of what Sri Ramakrishna said. He found in Sri Ramakrishna's words a synthesis between love of God and Vedantic knowledge. In the traditional way, as I said earlier, the world, the human beings are all obstacle on the progress on the spiritual path. So we had to, and so the society developed an antipathy towards the spiritual people or religious people developed an antipathy towards society. And we have the great teaching of the Advaitic teacher, Shankaracharya, Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya. Brahman alone is real, the world is unreal. So whatever happens, it's unreal. This statement interpreted in the wrong way, uncultured mind or not fully spiritually developed mind, made it people callous. If people are suffering, what is that? World is unreal. So don't have to bother. That idea came. But here Sri Ramakrishna showed that the Vedanta of the forest can be brought to the society and practiced in everyday life. if we have the idea that the people that we are dealing with, the people that we love, people we love and respect, or even the people that we dislike and despise, are God, then how can we have a superior attitude? How can we have hatred or arrogance? We cannot have, because we have the conviction they are all God. Or even we cannot even have the attitude of compassion, because it's God. This idea of serving others as God, as Jiva, as Shiva, will purify our heart. When you are trying to see the presence of God in others, we are not benefiting anybody else, we are benefiting ourselves. We will purify our heart, and gradually we will have the conviction that we are part of God. And going forward, we will come to the realization, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. I am that supreme reality. Narendra was so impressed by this statement of Sri Ramakrishna that he told his brother disciples, what a wonderful light have I got today from the Master's words. And then he said, if the Divine Lord ever grants me the opportunity, I'll proclaim everywhere in the world this wonderful truth I have heard today. And we see that. That's what Swami Vivekananda did later. He spread this message, the message of the divinity of human being and service to man as God. In a lecture delivered in London named Vedanta and Privilege, Swamiji says, it's a privilege to serve mankind, for this is the worship of God. God is here in all these human souls. He is a soul of man. Again, in a letter written to his Madras disciples from America in 1894, Swamiji, actually like a thunder, he is saying, do you love your fellow men? Where should you go to seek God? Are not all the poor, the miserable, the weak gods? Why not worship them first? Swami Vivekananda got all these ideas from Sri Ramakrishna, who considered it a sacred privilege to help the poor and the miserable, not just a duty to be performed. One should not think of it as a favor done to someone inferior to us. That's what our common idea is. If we help somebody, we expect thanks because we have done a favor to them. No, it's not a favor. It's a service to God. You have been given an opportunity to serve God. So Swamiji says, the poor man suffers that you may be helped, that we may be helped. Let the giver kneel down and give thanks. Let the receiver stand up and permit. See the Lord back of everyone, every being, and give to him. It's completely opposite to what we usually do. We give a little thing and we expect a big thanks. The poor person. And Swamiji says, you stand on a higher pedestal and give 5 cents and say, here, take the poor man, take the 5 cents. We, the giver, should kneel down because the poor person has given you an opportunity to serve him. Sri Ramakrishna got the conviction about the divinity of human beings, the oneness of all life, from his own experience. From his personal experience, he told that. After his attainment of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, Vedantic realization, we see few incidents like which shows this, his feeling oneness. One day he was sitting in his room, and those Dakshineswar Kali temple has got some lawn also. The freshly cut grass was there, and somebody was walking over the grass. And he felt as though someone was trampling on his chest. He felt that. He is feeling the presence of consciousness in the grass, everywhere. Another time, two boatmen on the Ganges, they were fighting. They were fighting in the boat. And one gave a slap to the other. And Sri Ramakrishna screamed in pain. He felt it. His nephew Hriday came running, hearing him screaming. What happened? And found the mark of the blow on his back. Who did it? Who did it? His consciousness has expanded. He is seeing one with all. And he wanted his torchbearer, Narendra, to have this realization. To see the Lord in his universal form, to serve him in all beings with love and reverence. That was the goal that Sri Ramakrishna held for Narendra. That was the goal that he envisaged Narendra should have. When Narendra was asking for realization, Sri Ramakrishna asked, what do you want? Oh, I want to remain immersed in samadhi for days together, once in a while coming down to normal plane to have some food to keep the body going. Sri Ramakrishna scolded him. What? You're such a small-minded person. I thought you will be like a huge banyan tree under which thousands of people will come and take shelter, and you are looking for your own salvation. You're such a small-minded person. There's a state higher than that. A state higher than Nirvikalpa Samadhi. See God in every being. So, in his life, when we study Swamiji's life, we see that this was literally fulfilled in his life. Swamiji urged his brother disciples who were keen only on their spiritual practices. No, he said, work for others. His followers, both lay and monastic, he urged them to put this idea into practice, serve man as God. And to his monastic disciples, he said that even if one life is gone in service to man, being unselfish, it is not a loss or a waste. For unselfishness is God. In his Karma Yoga lectures, he says, unselfishness is God. You be unselfish, then you are closer to God. To give a concrete shape to this ideal of serving God as man, or serving God, the God in man, when Swami Vivekananda started the Ramakrishna order, he gave the motto, Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitayecha, for one's own salvation and for the welfare of the world. The man is not forgotten, one's own salvation and the welfare of the world. All the philanthropic activities of the order is the practical expression of this dictum of Sri Ramakrishna, Jiva is Shiva. Whether it is relief activities or educational work, medical work, whatever it is, it's all, this one idea is behind it. Serve man as God. Swamiji calls it the practical Vedanta. The Vedanta is not just to be studied and discussed. It is to be practiced. And how do you practice it? By serving, seeing the presence of God in all. And for Sri Ramakrishna, it was a natural thing to see the presence of God in all. When young Narendra used to come, Sri Ramakrishna used to talk to him only, even though the room is full of other people. Then Narendra used to feel embarrassed. And one day he said, you love me so much, make sure you don't get the fate of King Bharata. There's a story in the epic where one king, he retired and went to the forest to live as a hermit and was doing spiritual practices. Then one day, when he went to take his bath, he found the baby of a deer floating in the water. He felt sorry for the poor thing, picked it up and brought it to the ashrama and his hermitage. And then gradually became so attached to it that all his thought was concentrated on that. And the story goes that in the next life, he was born as a deer. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, whatever is the thought prominent all through your life, that thought you will have at the time of death. And whatever is the thought at the time of death, your next life will be decided by that. So the king was thinking about the deer all the time. And the last moment he thought of deer and he was born as a deer. So Narendra is warning Sri Ramakrishna, don't think of me all the time. Don't make sure that you don't end up with the fate of King Bharata. Then Sri Ramakrishna got worried. Like a child, he got worried and straight away went to Divine Mother Kali, to the temple. And Mother consoled him. You love him because you see God in him. So that is, Sri Ramakrishna was so happy, straight away came and told Narendra, you frighten me, you confuse me. Mother said, I love you because I see God in you. The day I don't see God, I don't even look at your face. And he was able to see the presence of God in all. One day, Sri Ramakrishna was, just to give two instances, one day he was walking along the garden path with some other devotees, and from the distance they saw the scavenger lady carrying the night soil on her head, bringing. Sri Ramakrishna prostrated in front of her and said, "Oh mother, who but you can do this work?" See, we shun the people. She's doing the most menial work. We keep away from them. And here Sri Ramakrishna is saluting her, seeing the divine presence of Divine Mother in her. Another time, some ladies of Balaram, a very close devotee of Sri Ramakrishna, his family and some other ladies were all aristocratic women. They were sitting in Sri Ramakrishna's room and he was talking to them. At that time, a prostitute, she had her bath in the Ganga, and going back after the bath, she stood outside Sri Ramakrishna's door and saluted him. And he spoke a few words to her. These ladies were shocked. How could Paramahamsa talk to this prostitute? They didn't say anything, but they felt really agitated, upset. Then after some time, Sri Ramakrishna took them to the Kali temple, these ladies, and standing in front of Divine Mother Kali, he said, "Mother, in one form, you are the chaste woman. In another form, you are the prostitute." That opened the eyes of these women. They realized that Sri Ramakrishna is seeing Divine Mother, Sri Ramakrishna is seeing God in both the chaste woman and the prostitute. He is not seeing the outside form. He's not seeing, that's all for the body, but he is seeing the divine presence in all. This ideal of Jiva is Shiva is a great leveler. It removes all the difference between man and woman, between young and old, rich and poor, all the difference of social status, education, caste, creed, race, everything is removed because the divine is present in all. And this is the clarion call of Sri Ramakrishna. See God in all. I'll just quote a noted author and philosopher, Dr. Nagaraj Rao. He writes in one article, the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement has restored the true meaning of the Vedanta. It is Catholic in outlook, universal in application, and humanistic in practice. This is the religion we need in modern times. Thank you.
Just a few announcements. As you know, we've come out of our summer recess. Our Friday night discussions have recommenced. The yoga classes recommenced. The yoga classes are on Thursday morning from 10 a.m. to 11:15. And the Friday night discussions are held here in Vedanta Hall and led by Gayatriprana each Friday night. We have silent meditation from 7 p.m. and the discussion starts at 7:30. You can also join via Zoom. We are making our way through the Gita, and we're also pursuing various spiritual themes in those discussions. We will now be having lunch, so please stay back and have some lunch. We've got donation box up the back. And thanks very much for attending, and thanks to all of those who joined us via Zoom as well. And we have recorded this, the whole function, and we'll be uploading it to our Vedanta Society of New South Wales YouTube channel within a couple of days or so. Thanks again to our speakers and Kim.